The conference hall buzzed with excited chatter as representatives from 47 different species filed. Through the doors, Dr. Richard Hayes adjusted his tie and watched the colorful crowd settle into their seats. He had never seen so many different types of beings in one place before. Some floated, some crawled, and some existed as clouds of gas contained in specialized suits. Ambassador Trill clicked forward on crystalline legs, their translucent body refracting the overhead lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. Welcome everyone to the Galactic Council's annual Weapons Technology Symposium. Today we share our innovations in military science. Hayes looked down at his simple briefcase and smiled. The other humans on Earth had warned him this might be awkward. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 15 years ago, and most species still saw them as the new kids who barely understood fusion technology. Commander Voran, a towering reptilian with bronze scales, spoke first. He activated a holographic display showing a weapon that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. The crowd murmured with approval. Dr. Lyra, whose feathered species had evolved from predatory birds, presented a plasma cannon that could cut through starship hulls. Each species took turns showcasing increasingly sophisticated weapons. When Hayes' turn came, a few delegates were already whispering. He heard one say humans were too primitive to contribute anything meaningful. Another suggested they should have waited another century before attending. Hayes walked to the front and connected his datapad to the holographic projector. Thank you, Ambassador Trill. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. He paused, looking at the expectant faces. But before I show you human weapons technology, I have a question. The room fell quiet. Commander Voran's scaled brow ridge lifted in what might have been skepticism or curiosity. What exactly is a weapon? Hayes asked. Several delegates shifted in their seats. Ambassador Trill's crystalline structure flickered with confusion. Dr. Hayes, we have limited time. Perhaps you could simply show us your military hardware? Hayes nodded politely. I will, I promise. But this question matters. Is a weapon only something designed to harm? Or can anything become a weapon depending on how it's used? Dr. Lyra tilted her head, her crest feathers rising with interest. An intriguing philosophical point, but rather abstract for a military symposium, wouldn't you say? Maybe, Hayes said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a simple ballpoint pen. He held it up for everyone to see. Let me ask you all something. What is this? A writing instrument, said a delegate from the back, sounding bored. Correct. Hayes clicked the pen, and the small sound echoed in the large chamber. On Earth, we use about 5 billion of these every year. They cost almost nothing to make. Every human child learns to write with them. Every office worker has a cup full of them on their desk. He walked slowly across the stage, still holding the pen. But let me tell you what else this is. This is a stabbing weapon. The tip is hard plastic, sometimes metal. If you hold it correctly and apply pressure, it can puncture skin, damage eyes, or strike pressure points on the body. We have documented cases throughout human history of these being used in fights, in prisons, in self-defense situations. The room had gone completely silent. Hayes continued. The internal spring can be removed and used as a small projectile. The barrel can be used to blow darts. The ink itself, if ingested in large quantities, can cause illness. In extreme survival situations, the plastic can be melted and reshaped into other tools. Commander Voran leaned forward in his seat. Surely you're exaggerating. That's just a common tool. Hayes smiled, but there was no humor in it. That's my point exactly, Commander. On Earth, we don't really have a clear line between tools and weapons. Almost everything humans interact with daily can serve both purposes. We don't think about it consciously anymore, but the capability is always there. He set the pen down on the podium and activated his holographic display. An image of a typical human kitchen appeared, gleaming and modern and completely ordinary. I could spend our entire time showing you plasma rifles and railguns and the other military equipment humanity has developed. But that wouldn't really help you understand human weapons technology. Because the truth is, humans didn't start with military hardware. We started with whatever we could reach. The image zoomed in on a knife block sitting on a kitchen counter. Earth was not kind to humanity during our evolution. We had to compete with creatures that had claws, fangs, venom, armor, and size advantages. We survived by using our intelligence to turn our environment into an arsenal. Every object became a potential tool for survival. That instinct never went away. We carried it with us into space. Ambassador Trill's glow had dimmed to an uncertain flicker. Dr. Hayes, are you suggesting that humans see weapons everywhere? Hayes met the ambassador's gaze steadily. I'm not suggesting it. I'm stating it as fact. And over the next few hours, I'm going to walk you through an average human living space and explain the weapons, potential of everyday items that humans interact with constantly, usually without even thinking about it. He pulled up an image of a sunny kitchen with a window showing a garden outside. Fruit sat in a bowl on the counter. Cleaning supplies lined the shelf under the sink. Everything looked peaceful and domestic. Let's start with the kitchen, Hayes said. Because if we're going to understand human weapons philosophy, we need to start where humans spend a significant portion of their daily lives, preparing food. Dr. Lyra's feathers had flattened against her head in what Hayes recognized as a sign of unease. Commander Voran had stopped looking skeptical. Several delegates in the back rows were exchanging worried glances. Hayes advanced to the next slide, showing a close-up of a bottle of cooking oil. This is vegetable oil, he began. Humans use it to cook almost every day. He paused and looked around the room. Let me tell you what else it does. 2 hours had passed since Hayes began his presentation. The holographic display now showed a standard human kitchen in perfect detail, rotating slowly so every delegate could see each corner and cabinet. Hayes pointed to the bottle of cooking oil on the counter. Vegetable oil has been part of human warfare for thousands of years. When heated, it becomes an anti-personnel weapon. Pour it on stairs or floors, and it creates a surface impossible to walk on safely. Mix it with other common chemicals, and it becomes an accelerant for fire. In medieval times, humans boiled it and poured it on attackers. In modern times, it's a component in improvised incendiary devices. A delegate from the insectoid species raised a limb. But these are historical examples, yes? Surely modern humans don't actually use cooking supplies as weapons. Hayes pulled up a database on the screen. These are incident reports from the last 10 years alone. 3,200 documented cases of cooking oil being used in assaults, accidents turned violent, or self-defense situations. That's just what got officially reported. The insectoid delegate's antennae drooped. Hayes moved to the next item. A wooden block holding kitchen knives sat innocently on the counter. These require less explanation, I think. But what might surprise you is that humans keep these within reach at almost all times. Every home has them. Every restaurant has dozens. We teach children to use them safely starting around age 5 or 6. 5? Dr. Lyra's voice had gone up an octave. You give bladed weapons to juveniles? We teach them to cut vegetables, Hayes said calmly. But yes, the potential is always there. A standard chef's knife has a blade between 6 and 10 inches long. It's designed to cut through meat and bone. The fact that it's in a kitchen doesn't make it less dangerous. Commander Voran was taking notes on a datapad. His clawed hands moved quickly. Hayes noticed that several other military representatives were doing the same. The presentation moved to an image of a pressure cooker sitting on a stove. Hayes watched the recognition dawn slowly on some faces while others looked confused. This is a cooking device. It uses pressurized steam to cook food faster. It's in millions of human homes. Very convenient. Very common. He paused. It's also been used as an improvised explosive device hundreds of times throughout human history. The pressure mechanism that makes it useful for cooking also makes it useful for creating explosives when combined with other common materials. Ambassador. Trill's crystalline body had stopped refracting light properly. They looked almost cloudy now. Dr. Hayes, I must ask, is there a point to this presentation beyond disturbing the delegates? Hayes turned to face the ambassador directly. Ambassador, you asked humanity to participate in a weapons technology symposium. This is our weapons technology. Not the missiles and guns and combat systems we've developed for the military. This is the foundation. This is how humans think about the world around them. He turned back to the display and opened a cabinet under the sink. Colorful bottles of cleaning supplies lined the shelf. These chemicals are in every human home. We use them to clean floors, wash dishes, scrub bathrooms. But humans also know that mixing certain cleaners creates toxic gas. Chlorine and ammonia, for instance. Both sold in regular stores. Both completely legal. Combined, they create chloramine gas, which can kill quickly in an enclosed space. A delegate from aquatic species rose from their water-filled seat. I'm leaving. This is either a threat or a very disturbing joke. They moved toward the door. Hayes spoke to their retreating back. It's neither. It's just information. Information every adult human knows whether they think about it consciously or not. The aquatic delegate left. Two others followed. Hayes continued as if nothing had happened. He pointed to a microwave oven. This device uses electromagnetic radiation to heat food. The magnetron inside produces microwaves at a specific frequency. Remove it from the housing and you have a directed energy weapon that can cause burns and damage electrical equipment. Several human governments have classified information on weaponized microwave technology because the basic components are in every home. Dr. Lyra had her datapad out now too. She was making notes, but her feathers kept bristling and flattening in a nervous pattern. This is fascinating from a research perspective, but Dr. Hayes, do humans realize they're surrounded by all these potential weapons? Hayes considered the question. Yes and no. We know intellectually. If you asked any adult human to list dangerous items in their home, they could give you dozens. But we've normalized it. We teach children safety rules and trust that social conditioning and law enforcement will prevent misuse. For the most part, it works. For the most part? Commander Vorin echoed. Humans still harm each other sometimes, Hayes admitted. But given that every human has constant access to items that could kill, the fact that most humans never use them that way is actually remarkable. We choose not to weaponize our environment most of the time. That choice is important. He pulled up a new image. A collection of glass bottles in various sizes. Glass bottles are storage containers. We keep food in them, drinks, sauces. When empty, they're recycled. But they're also clubs, cutting weapons when broken, and can be filled with flammable liquid to create what humans call a Molotov cocktail, named after a historical conflict. Ambassador Trill made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Please tell me you're nearly finished with the kitchen. Hayes smiled apologetically. Ambassador, we haven't discussed the cutlery drawer, the dish soap, the aluminum foil, the plastic wrap, or the various appliances yet, but I understand this is overwhelming. Let me skip ahead. The holographic display shifted. Now it showed a human garage with tools hanging on the walls and various containers stacked on shelves. A lawnmower sat in one corner. Bags of fertilizer were stacked neatly near gardening equipment. This is a standard human garage and garden storage area, Hayes said. Let me tell you why military forces around the galaxy should be very concerned about humans having access to hardware stores. Commander Vorin stopped, writing, and just stared at the image, Dr. Lyra's. Crest feathers had gone completely flat. Ambassador Trill seemed to be struggling with whether to end the presentation or let it continue. Hayes pulled up an image of a simple bag of fertilizer. This helps plants grow, he said. It's also the primary ingredient in several types of explosives. 3 more delegates stood up and left the room. 4 hours into the presentation, the conference room had emptied considerably. Only 23 delegates remained from the original 47. Security personnel had stationed themselves at the doors after Ambassador Trill filed a formal complaint with station management. Hayes had politely noted that stationing armed guards at a weapons symposium seemed redundant. The holographic display showed the inside of a typical human garden shed. Bags of fertilizer, containers of weed killer, bottles of pesticides, and various fuels sat on metal shelves. Gardening tools hung from hooks on the walls. Hayes gestured to the fertilizer. Ammonium nitrate is the most common type. It helps plants by providing nitrogen. Humans use millions of tons of it every year for agriculture. It's cheap, effective, and available in every farming community. He pulled up a chemical diagram. It's also an oxidizer. When mixed with fuel oil, another common item, it creates a powerful explosive. This combination has been used in mining operations, construction, and unfortunately, in numerous attacks throughout human history. The ingredients are so common that restricting them would cripple our agricultural system. Commander Vorn had stopped taking notes entirely. He sat with his arms crossed, his scaled face unreadable. Hayes moved to the next item. These are pesticides. Humans use them to kill insects that damage crops. They're neurotoxins specifically designed to disrupt nervous systems. Many of them work on a wide range of species, not just insects. He paused. The difference between a pesticide and a chemical weapon is primarily intent and delivery method. Dr. Lyra spoke up, her voice strained. Surely there are regulations on these substances? Of course, Hayes said. Humans have extensive regulations. But the substances themselves are necessary for food production. We accept the risk because the alternative is starvation. We just trust that most people won't misuse them. Trust, repeated Ambassador Trill, their crystalline body flickering weakly. You base your safety on trust? Hayes met their gaze. What else is there? You can't ban everything that might be dangerous. Not if you want society to function. So yes, we trust each other. Most of the time that trust is warranted. He advanced the display to show containers of gasoline and diesel fuel. These are fuels for vehicles and machines. Humans use them every single day. Every personal vehicle has a tank full of highly flammable liquid. Every gas station stores thousands of gallons underground. A delegate from a methane-breathing species spoke through their translation device. We use fuels, too. That's not unusual. True, Hayes acknowledged. But do you have historical documentation of your people using those fuels as weapons? Because humans do, extensively. Gasoline burns hot and fast. Diesel mixed with other materials makes explosives. We have entire military manuals dedicated to improvised incendiary devices using common fuels. He pulled up archived documents on the screen. Military field guides, survival manuals, and historical records scrolled past. The methane breather's suit clouded as if they were sighing inside it. Hayes pointed to a red propane tank sitting in the corner of the garage image. This is fuel for outdoor cooking. Humans have picnics and cook food on portable grills. Very pleasant. These tanks are also pressurized containers of explosive gas. Drop one wrong, apply heat, puncture the containment, and you have a very dangerous explosive. The display shifted to show garden tools. Shovels, rakes, hoes, and pruning shears hung neatly organized. These are farming and gardening implements. Most human residences have them. They're designed to cut through plant matter, dig through soil, and trim branches. Hayes picked up a stylus and highlighted each tool. Every single one of these has been used as a weapon at some point in human history. Shovels are clubs with sharp edges. Pruning shears cut through wood, which means they cut through flesh easily. Rakes can be used to strike or trap. An elderly delegate whose species Hayes didn't recognize raised a trembling appendage. Why are you telling us this? What is the purpose of frightening us with your species' capacity for violence? Hayes set down the stylus. I'm not trying to frighten anyone. You asked humanity to share our weapons technology. This is it. This is the truth of how humans interact with our world. Everything is a potential tool. Everything is a potential weapon. We don't think about it anymore because it's so deeply ingrained in our psychology. He pulled up a new section of the display showing a hardware store aisle. Now, let's discuss what humans call a hardware store. These are retail establishments where humans buy supplies for home repair and construction. Commander. Vorn actually groaned. Dr. Lyra had her head tucked. Under one wing, Hayes pointed to a display of ball bearings. These are used in machinery to reduce friction. They're perfectly spherical, made of hardened steel. Humans also know they're perfect projectile ammunition. They can be fired from improvised weapons, scattered on floors as caltrops, or used as weights for clubs. He moved to the next item. Nails used in construction. Also used as shrapnel in explosives, as caltrops, as stabbing weapons. A nail gun is a tool that drives nails into wood. It's also a weapon that fires metal projectiles at high velocity. The display showed chains hanging on hooks. These are for towing, lifting, and securing. They're also weapons. Bludgeons, restraints, garrots. Medieval humans wrapped chains around their fists for fighting. Modern humans still know how. Hayes continued through the hardware store inventory. Duct tape for restraints. PVC pipe for club weapons or improvised gun barrels. Power tools that could be torture devices or cutting weapons with minimal modification. Concrete mix that could be used to create barriers or to conceal evidence of crimes. Dr. Lyra finally pulled her head out from under her wing. Dr. Hayes, how does your species maintain any sense of security? How do you trust anyone when everyone is constantly armed simply by existing in their own homes? Hayes considered the question carefully. We maintain security through social bonds, legal consequences, and cultural conditioning. The vast majority of humans never weaponize their environment against others. The capability is there, always, but the choice not to use it is what defines civilized human behavior. He pulled up a final image for this section. A computer screen showing an internet forum. I should mention something else. Humans have an entire subculture online dedicated to theorizing about survival scenarios. They call it prepping or survival planning. There are millions of discussions about how to weaponize common items in case of social collapse or catastrophe. The screen filled with search results. Forums, videos, instruction guides, all created by regular human civilians. Ambassador Trill's glow had faded to almost nothing. You're telling us that ordinary humans, not military personnel, spend leisure time planning how to turn their homes into armories? Yes, Hayes said simply. It's considered a hobby. 4 more delegates left the room. 5 hours in, and the symposium had become something else entirely. What started as an academic exchange had transformed into an endurance test. 15 delegates remained, either too stunned to leave or too fascinated to look away. Station security had requested twice that Hayes end the presentation early. Ambassador Trill had denied both requests, citing the mandatory attendance protocols that the ambassador themselves had written. The holographic display shifted to show a sports equipment store. Bats, hockey sticks, golf clubs, and various balls lined the colorful shelves. A bicycle hung on the wall. Fishing rods stood in racks near camping gear. Hayes gestured to the baseball bat display. Humans engage in recreational activities. We play games for fun, exercise, and social bonding. This is a baseball bat. Children use them. Adults use them. They're sold in regular stores with no restrictions. He picked up his stylus and pointed. It's also a club weapon. Weighted, easy to grip, and designed to hit objects hard enough to send them flying at high speeds. Humans have used baseball bats as weapons for as long as the game has existed. Every police force on Earth has responded to calls involving baseball bats used in assaults. Commander Voren spoke for the first time in an hour. You give these to children? For sports, yes. Supervised sports. But the object itself doesn't know the difference between hitting a ball and hitting anything else. The human holding it makes that choice. Hayes moved to hockey equipment. This sport involves hitting a hard rubber disc with sticks on ice. The sticks are rigid, the puck can break bones if thrown at someone, and humans wearing protective armor physically collide with each other as part of the game. We consider this entertainment. Dr. Lyra's feathers ruffled. Your recreational activities sound like combat training? They are, in a way, Hayes admitted. Most human sports evolve from hunting practices or military training. We just formalize them into games with rules. But the underlying skills remain the same. hand-eye coordination, distance judgment, force application, team tactics. The display showed golf clubs next. Hayes highlighted the metal heads and long shafts. Golf is considered a gentleman's game on Earth. Players hit balls into holes across carefully maintained grass courses. Very peaceful. Very refined. He paused. A golf club is also a very effective bludgeoning weapon with significant reach. The weighted head concentrates force. The shaft provides leverage. An insectoid delegate who had remained silent throughout the presentation finally spoke. Is there any human activity that isn't adjacent to violence? Hayes thought about it. Probably. But humans evolved as persistent hunters and opportunistic omnivores on a planet where everything wanted to eat us or compete with us for resources. Our recreation often reflects our evolutionary heritage. He pulled up images of archery equipment and crossbows. These are sold as sporting goods. Archery is an Olympic sport. Crossbows are used for hunting. Both are also weapons that can kill at range with no noise. Both are legal to own in most human jurisdictions. The display shifted to show vehicles. Cars, motorcycles, and trucks in various sizes and colors. These are personal transportation. Humans use them to travel, to work, to transport goods, to visit family. The average human vehicle weighs about 1.5 tons and can reach speeds over 100 miles per hour. Hayes let that sink in before continuing. There are also battering rams. Humans have used vehicles as weapons in countless conflicts and criminal acts. A car moving at high speed has kinetic energy comparable to many explosive devices. Every human with a driver's license has access to this potential weapon every day. He zoomed in on the interior of a vehicle. The components are also useful. Tire irons are prying tools, but also clubs. Battery acid is corrosive. Seatbelts can be restraints. Airbags, if triggered properly, can be used as concussive devices. The onboard computer systems can be hacked. The fuel system can be weaponized. Commander Voren leaned forward. Let me ask you something directly, Dr. Hayes. Is humanity a threat to the Galactic Council? The room went completely silent. Every delegate still present turned to look at Hayes. Security personnel at the doors shifted their stances, hands moving closer to their weapons. Hayes met the commander's gaze steadily. That depends entirely on whether the Galactic Council threatens humanity. We've been peaceful members for 15 years. We've shared technology, participated in trade, and contributed to mutual defense. We've weaponized exactly nothing against Council members. But you could, Voren pressed. Yes, Hayes said without hesitation. Easily, so could you. So could every species in this room. The capacity for violence isn't what makes a species dangerous. It's the willingness to use that capacity without cause. Dr. Lyra spoke up, her voice thoughtful. There's something I've noticed throughout your presentation. Dr. Hayes, you keep mentioning that humans could use these items as weapons, but you also keep mentioning that most humans don't. Why is that? Hayes smiled, and for the first time in hours it reached his eyes. Because we don't want to. Humans lived through millennia of having to fight for every scrap of survival. We remember what that was like. We wrote it down, we taught it to our children, we made sure we would never forget. But we also decided we didn't want to live that way anymore. He pulled up statistics on the screen. Crime rates, conflict data, violence trends. Yes, humans still commit violence. But relative to our population and our capacity for violence, the percentage is remarkably low. Most humans go their entire lives without seriously harming another person, despite having constant access to the means to do so. Ambassador Trill's crystalline structure had regained some of its glow. You're saying that human restraint is more impressive than human capability? I'm saying that human restraint exists because of human capability. We know what we can do. We know how easy it would be. And we choose not to do it. That choice, repeated billions of times a day by billions of humans, is what makes us safe to be around. A junior delegate from a species that resembled purple clouds raised a tentacle. Dr. Hayes, is there anything that humans cannot turn into a weapon? Hayes paused. He looked at the remaining delegates, at the security personnel. at the now empty seats where so many representatives had been sitting just hours ago. "Let me tell you about office supplies," he said. Dr. Lyra put her head back under her wing. 6 hours had passed since the weapons symposium began. The conference room felt larger now, with only 12 delegates remaining. Coffee cups and empty water containers littered the tables. Ambassador Trill had filed 3 separate formal complaints with station management. Station security had doubled the guards outside the door, though Has suspected that was more to keep delegates from leaving than to protect them from him. The holographic display showed a typical human office. Desks with computer monitors, filing. Cabinets against walls, supply closets filled with various items. Everything looked mundane and professional. Hayes picked up a pen from the podium, the same one he had started with 6 hours ago. "I began this presentation with a pen. Let me expand on that concept." He pulled up images of various writing instruments. Pens, pencils, mechanical pencils. Humans use these constantly. They're in every office, every school, every home. Children carry them in bags, adults keep them in pockets. He held up the pen again. The barrel is rigid plastic or metal. The tip is pointed. The grip section provides control. This is a stabbing weapon. Aim for soft tissue or pressure points. The human jugular vein is a common target in self-defense training that specifically covers improvised weapons. A delegate whose species resembled mobile plants rustled their leaves nervously. "You teach civilians to use writing instruments as weapons?" "We teach self-defense," Hayes clarified. "Part of that involves recognizing that almost anything can be used to defend yourself if necessary. It's not about encouraging violence. It's about acknowledging reality." The display showed a stapler. This is a standard office stapler. It binds papers together using small metal fasteners. It's also a bludgeon, a projectile weapon if thrown, and the staples themselves can be used as improvised caltrops or small blades. Hayes pulled up a video demonstration. Staplers have enough spring tension to fire staples short distances. Humans have known this since staplers were invented. Every office worker has probably fired a staple across a room, either accidentally or deliberately. He moved to the next item. Paper clips filled a small container on the virtual desk. These are for organizing papers. There are also lockpick components. Every intelligence agency trains operatives in lockpicking, and paper clips are standard training tools because they're so common. They can also be straightened and used to conduct electricity, to create small caltrops, or to jam mechanisms. Commander Voran had his head in his hands. His translator was working overtime to process his muttered words in his native language, none of which sounded complimentary. Hayes pulled up an image of rubber bands, elastic bands for holding things together. Also the basis for improvised projectile launchers. Human children learn this instinctively. They shoot paper projectiles at each other in schools. We call them spitball shooters or rubber band guns. It's considered normal childhood behavior. "Normal," Dr. Lyra repeated weakly. "Weaponizing school supplies is normal for human children." "They don't think of it as weaponizing," Hayes explained. "They think of it as playing." But yes, human children instinctively understand the weapons potential of objects around them and experiment with those capabilities. We generally discourage harming each other, but the curiosity about what objects can do is considered healthy development. The display showed a letter opener. This is for opening mail. It's a knife. Smaller than a kitchen knife, but still a blade designed to cut through material. Many human offices have them sitting on desks, completely unrestricted. Hayes pulled up filing cabinets, desk lamps, computer cables, and keyboards. These are all office equipment. All of them have been used as weapons at various points. Filing cabinets are heavy and can crush or trap. Desk lamps are clubs with hard bases. Computer cables are garrots or whips. Keyboards have enough weight and edge to cause injury. He paused and looked at the remaining delegates. "I want to emphasize something important. Human offices are not battlefields. Human schools are not training grounds. These are normal, peaceful environments where millions of humans work and learn every day without incident. The capability exists, but the choice not to use it is universal. Ambassador Trill's structure had started flickering again. Then why tell us about it? Why spend 6 hours explaining how dangerous humans could be if most humans never act on that danger? Hayes set down his stylus. Because you asked about human weapons technology. And this is the foundation of that technology. We didn't start with energy weapons or molecular disruptors. We started with rocks and sticks. Then we got more sophisticated, but we never lost the fundamental understanding that anything can be a tool or a weapon depending on need. He pulled up one final image. An internet search screen showing forums dedicated to zombie apocalypse survival. This is a human cultural phenomenon. Millions of humans engage in theoretical discussions about survival scenarios. They plan what items they would use if modern society collapsed. They discuss which common objects make the best weapons, which stores to raid first, which locations are defensible. The search results scrolled past. Thousands of discussions, millions of comments, detailed plans, and equipment lists. This is recreational for humans. They enjoy thinking about survival scenarios. They prepare emergency supplies. They learn skills that might be useful in catastrophes. They theorize about using everyday objects as weapons and tools. Commander Voron stood up suddenly. His chair scraped loudly across the floor. I am invoking council emergency. Protocol 7. This presentation poses a clear and present danger to the psychological well-being of attending delegates. 8 more delegates immediately stood and filed toward the door. The security personnel stepped aside to let them through. They moved quickly. As if worried Hayes might try to demonstrate the weapons potential of conference furniture, only 4 delegates remained. Ambassador Trill, Commander Voron, Dr. Lyra, and the elderly delegate who had questioned Hayes earlier. Hayes looked at them calmly. I apologize if my presentation has been distressing. That was never the intent. I was simply answering the questions posed by this symposium. You wanted to understand human weapons technology. This is it, not the guns and missiles. This, the mindset that sees tools everywhere. Dr. Lyra spoke quietly, her crest feathers completely flat. You're not a warrior species, are you? You're a survivor species. There's a difference. Hayes nodded slowly. Yes, that's exactly right. Humans didn't develop weapons technology because we love war. We developed it because Earth gave us no choice. Everything on our planet wanted to kill us or compete with us. We survived by being more adaptable, more creative, and more willing to use whatever was at hand. He looked at each of the remaining delegates in turn. We didn't get good at violence because we enjoy it. We got good at it because we had to. Earth made sure of that. Ambassador Trill's glow had dimmed to almost nothing. What kind of world produces a species like yours? Hayes smiled sadly. A death world, Ambassador. We call it home. 3 days after the symposium ended, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Hayes sat in a small waiting room outside the main chamber, listening to the muffled sounds of heated debate filtering through the walls. His datapad showed news feeds from across the galaxy. The symposium had become a galactic incident. Headlines scrolled past. Humans terrify military summit. Are humans too dangerous for council membership? Deathworld species reveals weapons philosophy. Some species were calling for humanity's expulsion. Others defended them, pointing to 15 years of peaceful cooperation. The door opened. Ambassador Trill gestured for Hayes to enter. The chamber was enormous, with seating arranged in concentric circles rising toward the ceiling. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats. And all eyes turned to Hayes as he walked to the central platform, the council speaker. A being that resembled floating crystal formations addressed him formally. Dr. Richard Hayes of Earth, you have been called before this emergency session to address concerns raised by your presentation at the Weapons Symposium. Multiple species have petitioned to reclassify humanity as a restricted contact species. You will have the opportunity to respond. Hayes nodded and stood at the podium. The chamber's acoustics carried his voice clearly. Thank you, Speaker. I'm here to answer any questions the Council has. A representative from a silicon-based species spoke first. Dr. Hayes, your presentation caused 23 delegates to leave in distress. 4 more filed medical reports for psychological trauma. You spent 6 hours explaining how humans can weaponize common items. The question before us is simple. Are humans too dangerous to remain in the council? Hayes took a breath. With respect, I believe that's the wrong question. The right question is whether humans have used any of the capabilities I described against council members in the 15 years we've been part of the galactic community. Commander Voran stood from his seat. Dr. Hayes makes a valid point. I've reviewed Earth's diplomatic and military record. They've been exemplary members. No aggression, no threats, full cooperation with council initiatives. Whatever their capability, they've shown restraint. Another voice called out, restraint they could abandon at any moment. You heard the presentation? They see weapons everywhere. How can we trust a species like that? Dr. Lyra rose from her seat, her feathers catching the chamber's light. Because trust isn't about capability. It's about choice. She looked around at her fellow delegates. I've spent the last 3 days studying human history and culture. Do you know what I found? Humans have extensive philosophical and ethical frameworks specifically designed to restrain their capacity for violence. She activated a holographic display showing human texts. Laws against murder. Religious prohibitions on violence. Cultural taboos. Educational systems that teach cooperation. Humans don't rely solely on trust. They build elaborate social structures to prevent the misuse of their environmental awareness. Hay spoke again. Dr. Lyra is correct. Yes, humans see the weapons potential in everyday objects. But we also have thousands of years of ethics law and culture teaching us not to use that knowledge except in self-defense or legitimate need. The capability exists, but the choice not to use it is reinforced constantly. Ambassador Trill's crystalline structure had regained its normal glow. Dr. Hayes, I must ask, why did you share this information? You could have simply presented conventional military hardware and avoided this entire situation. Hayes met the ambassador's gaze, because that would have been dishonest. You asked about human weapons philosophy. If I'd only shown you guns and missiles, you wouldn't understand how humans think. You needed to see the foundation. The way we perceive our environment. He looked around the chamber. And honestly, I thought you should know. If we're going to be partners in this council, you deserve to understand what makes us different. Hiding it would be worse than revealing it. Trust requires honesty. The council speaker's crystals chimed softly. An interesting argument. Showing vulnerability as a form of trust building. Exactly, Hayes said. By showing you our thought processes, I made humanity vulnerable. You now know how we think. That knowledge cuts both ways. You could use it against us, or you could understand us better. I chose to trust that you'd choose understanding. The elderly delegate who had remained through the entire symposium stood slowly. I have a proposal. Rather than restricting human contact, we should learn from them. This council faces threats from various hostile forces. Human survival philosophy could help us defend ourselves without always relying on advanced weaponry. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Commander Voran nodded thoughtfully. The delegate makes a good point. Human adaptability is remarkable. If they could teach us to see our environments the way they do, it could be valuable for survival and defense training. The council speaker's crystals chimed again, calling for order. Dr. Hayes, would humanity be willing to lead a program teaching other species your survival methodologies? Hayes considered carefully. On one condition. Any program that teaches humans weapons awareness must also teach human restraint. The ethical frameworks, the legal structures, the cultural conditioning. You can't have one without the other. The knowledge is dangerous without the wisdom of when not to use it. Dr. Lyra spoke again. I volunteered to assist with such a program. The intersection of capability and ethics fascinates me. I believe many species could benefit from understanding both aspects. The debate continued for another hour, but Hayes could see the tide had turned. Fear was giving way to curiosity. The council voted to allow humanity to remain. with the condition that Hayes would direct a new program called Survival Technologies and Ethics. After the session ended, Hayes walked back through the station corridors. Ambassador Trill caught up with him near the docking bay. "Dr. Hayes, I owe you an apology. I underestimated humanity. I thought you were primitive because you'd only been in space for 2 centuries. Hayes smiled. "We are primitive in some ways. We're still learning. But survival? That's where we excel. Earth made sure we got very good at it. Your planet sounds terrifying." "It is," Hayes agreed. "But it's also beautiful. Maybe someday you'll visit and see for yourself." 3 months later, Hayes stood in a new training facility on the station. The first class of the Survival Technologies program was about to begin. 20 species had sent representatives. Commander Vorn was there. Notebook ready, Dr. Lyra had designed half the curriculum. Hayes picked up a simple pen from the desk. The students watched with various expressions of curiosity and nervousness. "Before we begin," Hayes said, "I want to establish something important. Over the next weeks, I'm going to teach you to see objects differently, to understand their potential uses beyond their intended purposes. But I'm also going to teach you why most humans never use that knowledge. Because the greatest weapon humanity has isn't our ability to harm. It's our ability to choose not to." He set the pen down gently. "Let's start with why that choice matters." A young delegate from a prey species raised a tentacle. "Will we learn about the pen?" Hayes smiled. "Eventually. But first, you're going to learn about trust." In the back of the room, Ambassador Trill watched through the observation window. Their crystalline body refracted light in patterns that might have been approval. Beside them, a military advisor asked, "Do you really think teaching others to think like humans is wise?" Trill was quiet for a moment, watching Hayes interact patiently with nervous students. "I think humans have carried the burden of seeing threats everywhere for their entire existence. Maybe it's time we understood that burden. And maybe, by sharing it, humans won't have to carry it alone anymore." On the podium, Hayes held up the pen again. But this time he clicked it and handed it to the nearest student. "Your turn," he said. "Tell me what you see."